Good afternoon, CukenFest. My name is Shamyla, and I'm a software tester from London. I am also a first-time conference speaker, so fingers crossed you will all be super nice and, of course, empathic towards me. And you can tell I'm a first-time speaker because I've lost my presentation. Hey, there we go, back again. Right, so empathy. My talk is about how we can use empathy as a tool to drive software testing. But the reason I've chosen to talk about software testing in particular, because when you're a software tester, you're often the first user of the product. So it definitely helps to have a sense of empathy with the end user. But what does empathy actually mean? Let's imagine this scenario for a second. Imagine you've done a big deployment or a big release. You're punching the air, you're fist bumping, and then a few minutes or a few hours later, all hell breaks loose. You have to do a rollback. You have to do the post-mortem. I feel your pain. I understand the emotions that you went through. Empathy, at its core, is the ability to share and understand the feelings of another individual, as if you were that individual yourself in that situation. But how does empathy tie into software testing? I'd like to share a few examples of where empathy has played a major role. And one of those roles was the bug bash story. So hands up who has ever participated in a bug bash or a bug hunt before. Not many of you. Okay, so for those who don't know, a bug bash or a bug hunt is essentially a time box session where pretty much everyone pounds on the product, finding any bugs or issues as they go along. In this particular story, the product being bashed was a library application used by sports coaches. So if they wanted information about previous games or any notes they made, they can look it up. They can look it up there. The library itself had undergone a bit of a revamp recently. It was now using Elasticsearch, making it super lightning fast. And our time to interact was averaging at 3 seconds. So any action the user made was fulfilled within 3 seconds. So if we went above that figure, we knew that something was wrong. I was tasked with facilitating this bug bash. And the challenge that I had was, how could I guide the participants to behave in such a way that they adhered to the requirements of the bug bash, which were A, make sure that Elasticsearch is super fast when the library is being used by many people, and B, are the actions still fulfilled in 3 seconds? So I decided to show them this video.
More men now. Watch this. You may get tossed. I've never seen that angry ever. DeAndre Jordan. After him. He's gone. Wow. He's still angry. More men now.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce the angry coach persona. I asked the participants to imagine a scenario where they're an angry coach. Imagine you've just lost a game. The coach, feeling frustrated and tired, now needs to look at his library and see where he went wrong. He will be clicking, ticking, selecting, or any other user action super fast. So I want you to execute your test scenarios quickly. And when you're executing those scenarios, when you're doing any action, make sure that they are fulfilled within 3 seconds. Personas, at their heart, the whole concept of personas is to create empathy with the end user. But they're a bit like test charters. They allow you to look at the software from a different perspective. But in my opinion, the problem with traditional personas compared to empathy-driven ones is you're missing the emotive aspect. And by emotive, I don't necessarily mean the emotional state the user is in. It could be a characteristic or a trait. Let's take a look at the accessibility persona. Accessibility does not necessarily mean disability. Imagine you're on the tube, you're holding onto the handrail with one hand, and you've got your phone with the other. How easy is that mobile application to use with one hand? How intuitive is it? We do a lot of work and a lot of research with these personas up front, but what often happens is we tend to forget about them, which is a shame, really. So why not incorporate these personas into your testing framework? Imagine you might have a persona that clicks on certain links or certain options. If you have these personas in your automation code or any type of code, you will be constantly reminded of the end user you are developing the application for, or certainly testing the application. When it comes to support, it can go by various names, and there are many different ways of providing support. For example, you have customer support or technical support, or sometimes you have a mixture of both. But with support, we often see images of smiling faces wearing a headset, much like this one. But the story that I'm about to tell is very different to this picture. So there were a group of us all huddled around a laptop, and we were listening to this support call. The support call in question involved a customer who wanted to know how he could use a certain workflow to get a task done. The support representative, being super polite, said, "I'm sorry, sir, but we do not have that feature available at the moment. Here is a long and convoluted workaround." Okay, so she didn't use the words long and convoluted, but you get the picture. And as she started to explain that long and convoluted process, I started to look around, and pretty much everyone was covering their faces with their hands. So we were all cringing and squirming. This was an issue that we were aware about, but we didn't have a chance to implement or work on the solution because there were other business priorities. And you really did feel a sense of empathy with the support representative, because certainly this wasn't the first call she had about this workaround. And in this case, she was lucky, because the customer wasn't angry, he was just disappointed. But you could definitely imagine a scenario where it would be much worse. Once the support call had finished, we had a much better understanding of the product. And we were able to use that information, the needs and wants of the customer, to empathetically develop and design the product. Support often deal with problems that were missed during past sprints, but you know what? It's not all doom and gloom. Sometimes they deal with customers who provide positive feedback. I remember listening to a call, and the customer just loved the product so much. And do you know what? Sometimes people bring up because they want to know more about a product. It honestly pays to have rapport with support. When you're listening to these phone calls, when you're looking at these Slack messages, you start to build a sense of understanding of what it's like for the support representative. And it also gives you an opportunity to look out for test ideas or software risks that might have been missed earlier on. But the question is, what do you do if you don't have a support team or a support department? Perhaps you're a startup with little customer traction. You can use social media. Do you know what? The power of social media should not be underestimated. With social media, there is no sugarcoating. If a customer is frustrated, they will tag the company, vent their frustration for the whole world to see, pretty much like this user has done. It's a bit like having your dirty laundry out to dry. But do you know what? There is an upside to having your dirty laundry out for all to see. you have the ability to understand the needs and wants of the customer. Sometimes they might provide you with feature ideas, or security issues that were perhaps missed. I've put together this little social media empathy map that can help you search for tweets. You can certainly use Instagram or Facebook too, but I find that Twitter works quite well. So all you need to do is use the company name, and alongside that, you can use positive or negative words or sounds. I haven't included swear words because sometimes swear words mean a good thing. and of course, I didn't want to swear at my very first conference. It's okay, guys. I'm not going to swear. It's all good. But you know what? Ultimately, you should do whatever it takes to build empathy with the customer. If there is a chance to meet your end users, meet them. Read publications, read newspapers. I like to focus on empathy in the workplace. Having empathy with colleagues is super important. Once you have that strong rapport, that strong bond, it's a lot easier to give respectful but blunt feedback. Imagine somebody who is neurodivergent, for instance. They may not feel comfortable speaking in a group, but if you have that bond, it provides them a safe space to express their ideas of software design. I'd like to leave you with this quote from Meryl Streep. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shamyla.